Welcome to the Thea Lee Podcast. Today is February 16th, 2026, and we are on day 47 of reading through the Bible. We start today with the Lord telling Moses that Aaron needs to set up the lamps in the tabernacle so that all of the light goes forward in front of the lampstand. The lampstand and the lamps and all the decorations on the lampstand are made of hammered gold, so they set up this lamp just as the Lord had described. Then the Lord tells Moses to set the Levites apart from the rest of the people of Israel and make them ceremonially clean. Do this by sprinkling them with the water of purification, have them shave their entire bodies, and wash their clothing. Then they will be ceremonially clean. Have them bring a young bull and a grain offering of choice flour moistened with olive oil, and another young bull for a sin offering. So the whole community of Israel assembled and presented the Levites at the entrance of the tabernacle. When they presented the Levites before the Lord, the people of Israel laid their hands on them, and then Aaron raised his hands and presented the Levites to the Lord as a special offering from the people of Israel, dedicating them to the Lord's service. Then the Levites laid their hands on the heads of the young bulls and presented one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to the Lord, to purify the Levites and make them right with God. Then the Levites stood in front of Aaron and his sons, and then Moses raised his hands and presented them as a special offering to the Lord. In this way, the Levites were set apart from the rest of the people, and the Levites will belong to God. Then they may go into the tabernacle to do their work, because they have been purified and presented as a special offering to God. God said, "Of all the people of Israel, the Levites are reserved for me. I have claimed them for myself in place of all of the firstborn sons of the Israelites. I have taken the Levites as their substitutes. For all of the firstborn males among the people of Israel are mine, both from people and animals. I set the males apart for myself on the day that I struck down all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. So now he has claimed the Levites in place of all the firstborn sons of Israel. And of all the Israelites I have assigned the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They will serve in the tabernacle on behalf of the Israelites and make sacrifices to purify the people, so no plague will strike them when they approach the sanctuary." So the community of Israel did this. They dedicated the Levites, carefully following all the Lord's instructions to Moses. Then the Lord also told Moses that the rule of the Levites was that they would serve in the tabernacle starting at the age of 25 and then retire at the age of 50. After that, they could serve as guards for the tabernacle, but they could not officiate in the service. 2 weeks after the tabernacle was finished, Israel celebrated the second Passover. So the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai on the first month of that year and said that it was time to celebrate the Passover at the prescribed time, at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. And he told him to be sure to follow all the decrees and regulations concerning the celebration. So Moses told the people to celebrate the Passover in the wilderness of Sinai, and they celebrated the festival there, just as God had commanded Moses. But there were some men who were ceremonially defiled by touching a dead body, so they could not celebrate the Passover that day. So Moses said that he would ask the Lord what to do about this. The Lord replied to Moses and told him that if there was anyone who ceremonially unclean from touching a dead body or for some reason was away during the Passover and could not celebrate it, then they could celebrate it on the second month, the 14th day at twilight. They could celebrate the Passover meal then. But they must eat the Passover lamb with bitter salad greens and bread made without yeast, and they must not leave any lamb until the next morning. They must not break any of its bones, and they must follow all the normal regulations concerning the Passover. But anyone who neglected to celebrate the Passover at the regular time, even though they were ceremonially clean and not away on a trip, would be cut off from the community of Israel. If they fail to represent the Lord's offering at the proper time, then they will suffer the consequences of their guilt. And if foreigners living among them wanted to celebrate, they could. They just had to follow the same decrees and regulations. The same laws apply to both native-born and the foreigners living among them. Now the Lord gives some procedures for the burnt offerings. He called to Moses from the tabernacle and told him to give the following instructions to the people. When they presented an animal as an offering to the Lord, they could take it from their herd of cattle or their flock of sheep and goats. If the animal was for a burnt offering, it must be a male with no defects. They had to bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle so that it could be accepted by the Lord. They had to lay their hand on the animal's head, and the Lord would accept its death in place of you to purify you, making you right with him. Then they would slaughter the young bull in the Lord's presence, and Aaron's sons, the priests, would present the animal's blood by splattering it against the sides of the altar that stands at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then they would skin the animal, cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priests, would build a wood fire on the altar, and they would arrange the pieces of offering, including the head and fat, to the wood burning on the altar. But the internal organs and the legs would first be washed with water, and then they would burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering, and that was a pleasing aroma to the Lord, a special gift. The animal they would present as a burnt offering from the flock would be about the same way, either a sheep or a goat. It had to be a male with no defects, and it would be slaughtered at the north side of the altar in the Lord's presence. Aaron's sons would then splatter the blood against the sides of the altar, cut the animal up. The priest would arrange it, including the head and fat, on the wood burning on the altar, but the internal organs and the legs would be washed with water first. Then they would burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. Again, a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If you presented a bird as a burnt offering to the Lord, they would choose either a turtle dove or a young pigeon. The priest would take the bird to the altar, wring off its head, and burn it on the altar. But first he must drain its blood against the side of the altar. The priest would also remove the crop and the feathers and throw them into the ashes on the east side of the altar. Then, grasping the bird by its wings, the priest would tear the bird open, but not tearing it apart. Then he would burn it as a burnt offering in the wood burning on the altar. And this was again a pleasing aroma to the Lord, a special gift. Then he talks about the grain offerings, that they could present a grain offering to the Lord, and it must consist of choice flour. You are to pour olive oil on it and sprinkle it with frankincense, and bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests. They would scoop out a handful of the flour moistened with oil with all of the frankincense and burn this representative portion on the altar. This was a special gift and a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then the rest of that grain would be given to Aaron and his sons. This would be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. And then they said that you could take some of your grain offering that would be baked in an oven. It must be made of choice flour, but without any yeast. It may be presented in the form of thin cakes mixed with olive oil, or wafers spread with olive oil. Or if your grain offering is cooked in a griddle, it must be made of choice flour mixed with olive oil, but without any yeast. You could break it into pieces and pour olive oil on it as a grain offering. If your grain offering is prepared in a pan, it must be made of choice flour and olive oil. No matter how your grain offering is presented to the Lord, or how it is prepared, you have to bring it to the priest, who will present it at the altar. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain and burn it on the altar. This is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons as their food. This offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Do not use yeast in preparing any of the grain offerings that they presented to the Lord, because no yeast or honey may be burned as a special gift presented to the Lord. You may add yeast and honey to an offering in the first crops of your harvest, but these may never be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Season all of your grain offerings with salt to remind you of God's eternal covenant. Never forget to add salt to your grain offerings. And then, if you present a grain offering to the Lord from the first portion of your harvest, bring fresh grain that is coarsely ground and roasted on a fire. Put olive oil on this grain offering and sprinkle it with frankincense. Then, of course, the priest will take representative portion of the grain moistened with oil together with all the frankincense and burn it as a special gift presented to the Lord. Then they go into peace offerings, saying that you can present an animal from your own herds. It may be a male or female without defects. You lay your hand on the animal's head and then slaughter it at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then Aaron's sons will splatter the blood against the sides of the altar. The priest must present part of this offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and then Aaron's sons will burn them on top of the burnt offering on the wood burning on the altar. It's a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You can do the same thing with an animal from the flock as a peace offering to the Lord. It may be male or female, but it must have no defects. If you present a sheep and you bring it to the Lord, you lay your hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tabernacle. Aaron's sons splatter the sheep blood against the sides of the altar. They must present the fat of the peace offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes the fat of the broad tail cut off near the backbone, all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them all on the altar. It is a special gift of food presented to the Lord. And then if you present a goat as your offering, you lay your hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tabernacle. Aaron's sons then splatter the goat's blood against the sides of the altar, and then the priest takes a part of the offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat around them near the loins, and then the long lobe of the liver. These are removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar. This is a special gift of food, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. All of the fat belongs to the Lord. You must never eat any blood or fat, and this is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation, wherever you live. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again tomorrow.